Hello and welcome to the Ask the Expert show. This is where you can ask directly questions of our experts and get your questions answered. My name is Allison Cracker, and I am a product marketing manager here at Microsoft. And today we're going to be discussing all things certification. With me, I have Liberty Munson. Liberty, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Liberty Munson. I'm the psychometrician on our technical certification program, and that's really just a fancy way of saying that it's my job to ensure that whatever tool or process we use to evaluate skills is valid and reliable. So when you earn a Microsoft certification, it actually means something.
Fantastic. Thanks, Liberty. Super excited that we're chatting today. If you are joining us live, please get your questions into the chat. We have a huge host of folks that are going to be answering some of those questions. We'll be bringing them live. So we're trying to answer as many questions as possible. If you're watching this on demand, welcome. And be sure to check out the resources provided in the description to learn more. So with that, Liberty, we're going to go right into our questions. Could you talk through, when we think about our certification program, the difference between fundamentals, role-based, and our specialty certifications?
So we have three different types of certifications, as you just alluded to. The fundamentals really validate the foundational understanding of Microsoft technologies. So the foundational knowledge that you need around Azure or Microsoft 365 or Power Platform. So it's really kind of a starting point for many people who are new to technology or even new to a particular career area. So it's not a requirement in our certification program, but it's optional for those people who are just getting started or just need kind of to demonstrate a basic level of understanding in our core technologies. So role-based then is a much higher level. It's intended to validate technical skills that are required to perform industry jobs that really leverage Microsoft technology and platforms within those organizations. And we have two types of those. We have expert and associate. And then we have specialty, and this is really a deep dive into some core critical skills that are needed within some of our job roles, but not all of the job roles. So for example, they really leverage third-party solutions that work with or on Microsoft platforms. So SAP on Azure is one great example of a specialty cert.
Perfect. And could you talk through the value of the role-based certifications and a little bit about why we made that shift? We get that question a lot.
As you know, technology is constantly evolving, and as time progresses, it seems to change very, very quickly. And so what we were seeing at the time we made this change is that organizations really need people who know how to keep pace with those rapid changes and understand how to use our technologies within a particular job role. Mm-hmm. So these job role certifications are really aligned to in-demand jobs, and they're based on the core skills that we have identified with industry subject matter experts that are needed to be successful in those job roles. So they really validate your knowledge and your ability to perform a job role rather than how you use a specific product or solution that Microsoft offers. So it really tries to provide a more holistic view of what you're doing in a particular job role and how you leverage Microsoft technologies to help organizations on their digital transformation journeys.
Fantastic. A question that we are getting a lot. So we're going to talk about certification renewal. Lots of questions about certification renewal. Can you talk more about certification renewal and then some of the specifics about what our learners need to know?
So certification renewal it really reflects this idea that technology is moving at a very rapid pace. So how do we make sure that you're staying up to date on the skills that you need to be successful in your job? And that's what cert renewal is intended to do, is provide you with a way to demonstrate ongoing, continued skills in critical job roles that are important to leveraging Microsoft's technology. So what we did when we introduced this is we thought, you know what, we want to do something different because we're Microsoft, but we want to make this simple to our learners. And so what certification renewal requires is that you complete an assessment on our Learn platform. It's free. You don't have to register for it. You don't have to schedule it. It's 6 months before your certification will expire. You'll start getting notices from Microsoft saying, hey, your cert's about ready to expire. Why don't you renew it? And it'll point you to the information that you need to do that. So there's a link in that email that takes you right to the learning path that we have provided if you need it. to take that assessment. So it's really intended to, if you've been doing the job and you're keeping up to pace, you may not have to do the learning path. Just take the assessment. And if you pass it, job done. Your certification has been extended for another year. If you do feel like you need to, maybe there's some skills you need to brush up on, or maybe you haven't been keeping up to date on the most recent changes in the job role, that learning path is intended to help you prepare for the assessment. So either you do the learning path or you don't. You take the assessment, you pass it, your certification is renewed. So we've really tried to keep it super simple. There's usually about 25 questions on those assessments. They typically take somewhere between 30 and 45 minutes to complete, but you can take as much time as you need. There's not a secure browser like our exams. So if you, if I often get this question, like, why are you asking me this? I would look it up on an exam. Well, on Cert Renewal, if that's what you would do in your real world, go look it up. That's totally fine. So again, we've tried to make it simple, but I will say that doesn't mean it's easy. Sometimes people conflate simple with easy. The questions are still written to a job at a job role level. It's still requiring you to take pieces of information and integrate different bits of you really have to understand the problem, and you have to integrate information across multiple areas to be able to answer those problems. Or to solve those problems. So it's not easy, but it is simple.
Perfect. Okay. So a few things that you touched on. It's free. Then we're going to get a notification from Microsoft 6 months before our certification is about to expire that we can renew. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then it's not easy. Right?
Exactly.
So if I'm up to speed on the job role and I am kind of in the job, do I need to brush up on the learning path, or do you feel like I can just go ahead and sit for the and take the renewal assessment?
If you're doing the job, I would say first step, just take the assessment and see where you land. Odds are pretty good if you're doing the job every day, you're going to pass the assessment on the first attempt, and then you're done, and your certification is extended by 1 year from the date that it would have expired. So I think there is actually some confusion around that. Like, I don't want to do it 6 months in advance because then my cert is going to be the expiration date will be that new date. So that's not the way it works. If you take it 6 months in advance and it updates the expiration date from the current expiration date by a year. So if you are supposed to do your cert expires on December 31st, and I take it on I pass my cert renewal on July 1st, my certification is going to be extended to the next December 31st. And so it's like you get 18 months if you do it early.
And if I don't renew before the certification expires, what happens?
Well, that means you have to re-earn the certification. So whatever the requirements are to earn the certification, those are what you would have to do. So if it's pass a single exam, you pass that exam again. Or if it's a multiple exam certification, you pass multiple exams.
Perfect. All right. We're getting this question a lot. If someone has multiple certifications that are expiring around the same time, what are your recommendations for how they should think about renewing them?
I would prioritize the ones that are going to expire first and start there, and then just lay out a plan. Like I said, if you're in the job role, this should be pretty simple for you to renew your certification. So start with the ones that are going to expire first. Knock those out of the park. I would lay out a plan. So say on this week, I'm going to focus on this one. And 2 weeks from that, I'm going to focus on this next one and this next one and this next one. If there's ones where you feel a little less confident, build more time in. So you may want to juggle your schedule. So those maybe expire a little bit later. But if you think that you need to really spend some time on that learning path and kind of brush up your skills, maybe build in the preparation for that one a little bit earlier before something you feel more confident in. So that's the way I would think about it, is prioritize the stuff based on expiration date, but do it logically based on where you think your skills are and what additional work might be necessary to get you prepared to pass that assessment. So you don't run into a problem where you're 2 days out from expiration and you're still struggling to pass it. So just be planful, prepare, do what makes sense for you based on your skills and what you're doing every day.
Got it. Okay, that's really helpful. That's a great advice for our learners. Okay, I love this question. This next question is coming up. It feels like Microsoft is making a lot of changes lately, and it's hard to keep up. Can you talk through why there are so many changes happening?
Welcome to the world of technology. So what we are trying to do is really make sure that the certifications and the credentials that you earn through our program really are valuable. And as technology continues to change so rapidly, that means we have to make decisions, and sometimes hard decisions, about what job roles we're going to create certifications for, which ones we may need to retire or replace because the industry is changing so fast. On top of that, we have some change at the kind of the certification level that happens, but we also need to make sure that those exams that are the basis of those certifications are staying up to date. So we actually update our exams every quarter. So every quarter, we're doing a review of the objective domain, and then based on any changes that result in the skills that we're measuring, we actually update the exam items to reflect those changes. So we're trying to be very predictable in when we do these updates. So once a quarter, we're updating our exams so that you know that's kind of a predictable cadence. And so what you should do is, when you register for an exam, recognize things could change before you take the exam. So regularly go back to the skills measured, that exam details page, and double check when the next update is going to happen. And then we try to give you at least 30 days notice on when those changes will happen. We tell you what the changes are going to be. And so you can either reschedule the exam accordingly, or you can make sure you're studying the right things for what will be on the exam on the day you take it.
Perfect. That's so many changes we have to keep up with technology. I can imagine it's also hard just to make sure that we are staying fresh on everything. So that kind of goes into my next question a little bit, that we are getting a few questions about, is how does Microsoft determine what certifications are going to be created? So how do we at Microsoft create the certifications, and how do we determine why?
So that's actually a really great question, and it's probably much more complicated than people realize. But we do a lot of market research. We talk to our internal product groups. We talk to experts outside. We do market research. We look at job postings. We talk to organizations to find out what they are, like what skills they need to be in their organization to help them solve the critical problems that they have. And so all of that goes into a decision-making matrix that helps us determine whether we see that there is a value in creating a certification for a particular job role. So that's really what it comes down to. Is there a market need? And is there a business need? Like, are organizations struggling with something because there's a particular skill set, a job role that they need in order to achieve their digital transformation objectives? And so through that very detailed conversation, we decide whether we're going to create a certification in a particular space or not. And sometimes we say no, and then we come back and we revisit and we change our mind because the market has said, you know what, maybe we didn't have the right information when we made that first decision, but the market has changed enough that we see now a need for a particular job role.
Perfect. It's a fun process. You get to do some exciting things, Liberty, in your job every day.
I do love my job.
We are getting some questions about not only the you answered the last question about kind of how we determine what certifications are created, but now we're also getting some questions about kind of the exam development process. So could you explain more about exam development and specifically beta exams and how beta exams work?
Well, this is something I could talk about all day, but I'll try to keep it brief. So the way exams work is they start, once we've decided we're going to create a certification, we do a job task analysis where we invite external people who are actually in that job role to come and talk to us about what they do every day. And if it's such a new job role that we don't have many people externally, we try to find people who are doing the type of work we think would be reflected in this job role. But it's really, really important for us to get external expertise in these conversations, because we want to know how it's done outside of the Microsoft bubble. So we have those conversations. We identify the core skills that we want to measure on the exam based on that. We do what's called a blueprint, so we can prioritize those skills, and we know which ones are the most important. And so we know that how many questions we want to write to each one of those content areas. So if something's really important and you do it a lot, we're going to write more questions in for that particular skill versus something that is less important or done less frequently. From that, we will work with subject matter experts to write questions. So this is, I think, something that is unique about Microsoft in the world of certification, is that we hire subject matter experts to write our questions because we want them to reflect real world scenarios people encounter on the job. So we train them on how to write questions to the Microsoft style guidelines, like what a Microsoft question looks like. And if you've taken one of our exams, there's definitely a look and feel about what a Microsoft question is versus other types of certifications. If you've ever, if you've done multiple certifications from multiple organizations, you will definitely see that difference. But it's really, really hard to write good questions. So we have multiple checks along the way for quality. So the first one is what we call an alpha review, where another set of subject matter experts reviews those questions and they try to get them in as good a shape as they possibly can. Then we actually have another review where we have internal subject matter experts review the questions to make sure that we're all in agreement they're as good as they can possibly be. But even with all of that review, there are things we can't tell about a question until we put it into an exam-like situation. And that's where beta comes in. So beta is really our opportunity to find the flaws in questions that we can't see otherwise. And so what I love about exams, because I'm weird, is that when you take an exam, you're leaving a footprint. And from that footprint, I can tell not only if you are qualified for this job role, but I can also tell if there are issues with questions, like which questions are working well and which questions are not. So is something too easy or too difficult? Is something penalizing high performers and helping low performers? And then what's really another really valuable piece from the beta is that you all leave comments. And from those comments, I can take that information, look at what I see in the psychometrics and that data, and I can say, what is going on with this question? Is it really working? Is it not? What can we do to fix it? Or do we have to get rid of it? And so that's the value of beta from my perspective. It's kind of that last mile hurdle to get as good of questions into market as possible. I will say that our process is so robust that we don't see as many comments about questions when they go live. And we don't get as many escalations because we have solved many of the problems with the questions through that very rigorous development process.
I always am amazed when I think about the process you go through to actually arrive at a certification and actually publish an exam. So I think sometimes people think that it's something that we just kind of decide on and then publish, but it's actually, there's a lot of thought that goes behind, in the background about why we're doing a certification and steps to get to actually publishing an exam. So thank you for that clarity. Okay. You're going to love this question because I know you love this question, but we have a question about developers. Why should developers care about Microsoft certification?
This is funny because my husband's a developer and we have these conversations all the time. He's like, why do I have to be certified? The answer is very much the same as what I would tell everybody. It's a great way to kind of get that validation that you really know your skills, or that you really know your stuff, that you have the skills to be successful as a developer. So and the beauty of this is that certification really does set you apart. And I know that developers in particular are very hesitant around this world of certification. And so imagine if you're the one that did it, you are setting yourself apart in terms of, I have actually taken that extra step to demonstrate I have these skills. Somebody other than me has said, I have the skills to be a successful developer. So much like anybody, like I would tell any person around what's the value of being certified, it really is that thing that kind of sets you apart from other people. Because quite honestly, our certifications are hard. So when you earn one, that is like, you should jump up and down with joy and you should blast it to the world, because you have done something that few people have done. And it's an incredible, it's incredibly hard. So, and I do understand that some developers are like, well, I can just show what I do by sharing my code and things like that. And we really, I hear that feedback, and we are trying to implement some of the ways we ask the questions really require you to understand code in the way we structure them. So sometimes you're not actually writing code, but we're taking some item types where you're kind of simulating that process of writing code. Another great way that we're thinking about it from a developer audience is we're presenting you with code and there's something that's not right. So you have to parse that code and help us and help identify what the issues are. I mean, these are real world things that you would be doing in your job as a developer. So it's, although we're not quite to the point where we're going to say, develop something, share your code with us, and we will give you a certification based on that. That could happen in the future. I think that there's a strong possibility something like that could come along at some point. But today we're focused on the items and the ways we can ask questions. We're really trying to mimic what developers do in their job every day.
Fantastic. Okay, there is a question, several questions actually, so I'm kind of grouping them together. But when we think about training preparation for exams, so can you talk through where to access training, what types of training are available, and in preparation for our exams?
So the best place to start is Microsoft Learn. So for all of our certifications, there will be a learning path that will be available, or multiple learning paths that will be available to help you get prepared for the certification. And for fundamentals, that's probably, we have designed fundamentals so that that learning path is ultimately sufficient to adequately prepare you for the exam. I'm kind of hedging my words because I don't want to promise you will pass the fundamentals exam just by going through the learning path. But I think the probability is good that if you went through the learning path and you did everything that is part of that experience, you would be well set for the fundamentals exam. What's interesting about our role-based and specialty exams is they're really intended to reflect what is done in the job role. So the learning path is a really, really great starting point, but you are going to need experience because, like I said, we invite subject matter experts who are doing these things every day to help us write problems that they are encountering that become the basis of our questions. So if it's to understand some of the nuances and the way the technology works and how all that stuff comes together, it's really important that you get some experience on the technology in the job role so that you can answer those questions and solve those problems when you're faced with them on the exam. So my mantra is always get training, get experience, get certified. That experience is really, really important, whether it's in the job role itself or just getting your hands on the sandbox that's available on the Learn platform, or talking to people who have actually have had experience and really asking them some hard questions about what they're doing every day and the problems they're encountering and how they solve them.
All right, so get training, get experience, and then get certified, right?
Yes.
That's
yes.
the three? Okay. And I do want to remind folks that if you are checking out the certification, the learning path, as Liberty mentioned, is available on that certification page, and it gives you all the information that you need to know. So it is available right there on the page within Microsoft Learn. So it should be, you should be able to find all the related training, as Liberty mentioned. Okay, another question, Liberty, about your favorite topic, Windows Server. Is Microsoft planning to publish Windows Server certifications?
We have we have the Windows Server Hybrid certification. So if you are looking for that, we just recently launched that. So it's not very old. I can't remember the exact name of the certification because the world I live in is exams, but I will tell you it's AZ 800 and AZ 801. It is a 2 exam certification. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out if we could make it into a single exam, but it's too big. So it is a 2-exam certification. And it is currently available. I think it came out of beta a couple month or so ago. So check that out if you want, if that's an interest to you.
Fantastic. Okay. Next question that kind of goes back to our training question a little bit, but I'm interested to see your perspective on this. What is more important, experience, a certification, or a degree?
Oh, that's a good question.
I love this question.
I honestly think it depends on where you are in your career. So I believe that certification is more valuable to someone who is starting out in their career than somebody who has a lot of experience. When you think about it from a hiring manager perspective, like somebody who's hiring, the certification really, because of the way we've designed our certifications, it really does, as I mentioned, set you apart. So if you, and I would argue it's more important than a degree, because a degree tends to be more general. With our certifications, they're really focused on something that's relevant to the career aspiration that you have. So if you could have a degree in computer science, but if you're looking at something like, I want to be an Azure administrator, or I want to be an architect, or whatever it is that you want to do, that certification actually demonstrates that you have the specific skills needed to be successful in that job role. So especially early in your career, that's the thing that can set you apart. Another place where I think certification is particularly valuable is if you're a career changer. Right. So I've been doing psychometrician work for 15 years, but I want to be a developer. That's a huge change. So how do I demonstrate to people who might be interested that I actually am committed to this huge career change? I could get a certification and demonstrate that I have Azure developer skills, as an example. I think as you build up that experience and you go throughout your career, certification becomes less important in terms of helping you land a job. But I will say it does add a particular value that people forget, and that's this commitment to continuous learning. So as you earn certifications and as you renew them, there's an underlying story to be told that you care about continuing to grow your career. You care about keeping up to date on skills, and you care about continuing to learn. So it's not something that I think like grabs people and gets their attention, but it is really a great illustration of your commitment to this idea of continuous learning, which is becoming even more important in organizations as they think about who they're going to hire into positions, regardless of where you are in your career journey.
Oh, Liberty. I love that answer. Thank you. I'm going to go back and watch the on-demand recording, and I'm going to write that down and quote you on it. I'm going to quote you on it. Okay, so we have a couple questions about where can folks go to see all the available certifications, and then a little bit of like how to get started. So can you recommend where folks get started and where they can see the available certifications?
Yes. So everything we have is on Microsoft Learn. And I have created an AKA link. So it's aka.ms/certifications. And that will take you right to the page that has all of our certifications. And so the best way to get started is to find the certification that you're interested in, or the certifications, and go to the certification overview page, which will lay out the requirements for the certification and point you to the exams that are the exam details. From there, download the skills measured document and study that, and really just ask yourself, which of these skills do I have? Do I feel confident in? Which of these do I need to get more preparation for? And you have to be honest, right? So I would print it out and write it down, like star the ones that are good, put a minus behind the ones that you need some help with, and then go to the learning path and start exploring how you might get those skills. And if you need even more help, then if you're not really a self-directed learner or self-paced doesn't make sense for you, we also have instructor-led training that's offered through some of our learning partners, and they can help you as well. So there's lots of great opportunities. And I think once you feel confident in those skills, We have practice tests for most of our certification exams. Take a practice test, see how you do. We have seen research that says that if you can pass that practice test and you score above 80% and you can do it multiple times, you are more likely to pass your exam. So those are kind of the places I'd get started in a high level overview of what the learning journey could be.
Perfect. And we've got one other link for you, which is a nice poster we'll put up there. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are out of time, but head to the link below to see what episodes are coming up.